Hello, people of the internet. It's your boy Lucas coming to you with another BITREP TNG. After a long time, we finally got the studio up and running again and have the opportunity to film some games. So here's the first of many to come. This is a Chaos Knights versus World Eaters game I played with my good buddy Tanner the other night, and ended up being a pretty fun game. So I'll take you guys through the list, talk a little bit about the matchup and what we were thinking going into this game. This very much epitomizes kind of the practice philosophy we have up here when we play games with one another, of just kind of like working through all the steps, talking about the theory of the matchup and just working through things very slowly. It was a really fun game, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So just going over a list real quick. For the World Eaters, we have a Demon Prince on foot with the half damage relic. We've got Karn the Betrayer. We've got a Lord on Juggernaut with the favorite of Khorne ability that lets him reroll the blood dice. We've got the Master Executions with the Relic Berserker Glaive for plus D3 damage and attacks. 2 squads of 5 Berserkers, squad of 10 Jackals, 2 squads of 3 basic 8-bound, 2 squads of 6 exalted 8-bound, one of which will start the game in Deep Strike, 10 Jackals, and 5 Fleshhounds. For the Chaos Knights, we have 4 Carnivores, 6 Brigands, 1 Warlord Stalker, 1 Huntsman with a Melt-A-Gun up top. All of the other Knights have missile launchers up above, 3 squads of 3 Nurglings, and the Blue Scribes. So here, just going over things that are in reserve really quickly, we do have that 1 squad of 6 exalted 8-bound for the World Eaters in Deep Strike. That's looking to mostly be a very mobile, rapid ingress threat. World Eaters are very, very fast, in case you haven't played against them in 10th edition yet. And being able to ingress and then, advance and charge with potential for plus. Our thinking here, obviously with Tanner's reserves, is that he can bring them in via rapid ingress and, be able to quickly adapt to whatever flank I put more pressure on. For my reserves, what I wanted to do was be able to have enough threat on the board that Tanner couldn't just rush me down, but also be able to, I have 1 Knight and 1 squad of Nurglings and the Blue Scribes in Deep Strike, right? So if, depending on where he's weak, I can, especially with my mortars, be able to prey on his relatively squishy backfield and then drop the Blue Scribes in and steal his home objective. World Eaters have great ways to sticky objectives between cultists, and they also have a 1 CP stratagem to sticky an objective when a unit dies on it. That's a very effective stratagem, but if I kill you and you're sticky it and then my Blue Scribe is on the objective, you still lose the objective. So I kind of use that as a way to threaten his backfield and force him to keep units back there or be at risk of losing it. So as we can see here, going over deployment, the Chaos Knights have a Carnivore up here in the upper left. I assume you guys can see my cursor. In the middle here, we have a Carnivore backed by 2 Brigands. Down here, we've got a mess of Carnivores and Brigands. And then over here, we have a Stalker ready to run onto this close objective if I go first. I've got a squad of Nurglings here and another one here. Nurglings have a really important aura in this matchup. 6-inch aura, -1 to hit for non-vehicle, non-monster. I believe it's non-monster as well. So I've got a squad here, just kind of move blocking, being annoying, being a threat that he has to respond to. Or not a threat, but just a unit that, is kind of in the way. The idea being, if I go first, they can always get into the middle for both area denial and deploy teleport homer in case I draw it. I am doing tactical in this matchup. Tanner's also doing tactical. The thought being that World Leaders have incredible stratagems, and if he can cash in a couple objectives for CP, then extra money there. So I've got these Nurglings here to run and take the middle. In case, I go first and I draw the appropriate secondaries. And then I've got another squad back here deployed defensively so that I can have that -1 to hit aura. And as we can see, or as we're going to see, that is oftentimes very clutch in this matchup. We'll see that over the course of this game a fair bit. For the Eaters, we've got squad of 8-bound up here. Another squad of 8-bound here with attached Invocatus. We've got the Lord with attached Exalted here. The Lord gives them reroll advanced charges and blood surge rolls, so a little bit of extra mobility. We've got the Rhino with all of the Berserkers and characters inside it there. Fleshhounds over here on the flank and Jackals in the backfield. These Exalted 8-bound are not on the board. All right, so we roll off and Tanner ends up going first, so the World Leaders have the first turn. Let me go ahead and get the recording started. So we're going to see here are some scout moves from the World Eaters. They tend to play very much how they did in 9th edition, right? They like to pressure you, they like to get up in your grill, they like to project lots of threat. That's going to happen a fair bit, by the way, all the bumping of the camera setup as we get used to having this rig in the middle of our living room. It's definitely kind of big and clunky, and we're going to do some more work to try to secure it to the ground so it doesn't bump around very often. So there'll be 1 or 2 more bumps like that over the course of the game. Sorry about that. We'll do it less and less as we get more used to it, but it's just something that we're not quite acclimated to yet. So bear with us while we figure that out. So yeah, like I was saying, world leaders, they love to project threat. They love to take the mid board and just kind of keep you off the objectives for long enough. It's a very effective strategy, melee pressure, especially on these new fixed layout boards. It can be very challenging to try to crack that setup, right? Because they have a lot of pressure. They are standing on all the objectives. It's basically impossible for you to just run onto the objectives and expect to live, because they'll just punch you off of them. They hit less hard than they did last edition, but it is still a very brutal affair to try to survive a world leader's charge. So what you have to do at the end of the day is bait them out and start removing resources as inexpensively as possible. And I've tried to do that here. I've put some stuff out to try to tempt Tanner in. And the idea being that if he lets those resources live, then they could score me secondary points or disrupt his primary, that kind of thing. So for example, I've got this stalker here, the weakest of my 12 dogs, has the ability to walk 12 onto that objective. So if he just puts models on it and expects to get the primary, I could just walk on and deny it with my worst dog. Here, I've got these Nurglings. They can go to the middle, and while they have OC 0, so they won't be able to take the objective, they will be able to deploy a teleport homer or get area denial or something of that nature, right? So these units that have the potential to score me points that Tanner really wants to respond to, if at all possible. So here, we can see him going aggressive here. He's drawn his tactical cards for turn 1. His goal is to kind of just posture up, try to get a 10 on primary if he can, and keep me bottled up in my deployment zone as much as possible. He drew Assassination and Cleanse on turn 1. Unfortunately, this Stalker is actually one of my only characters, the other one being in Deep Strike. So if this Invocatus charge ends up killing that Stalker, then he will get 5 points for that. On Assassination, and his other objective is Cleanse. The Fleshhounds were just within 12 of that objective, pre-measured, so they can just run over there and do that real quick. And then this Rhino, also with +2 move from the blood dice roll, is going to move into the middle of the board with a 14-inch move, toe onto that objective, and do a Cleanse real quick. So that'll be a nice solid 10 on secondary to start for Tanner, which is lovely. It's a great start for him. As we can see, this other squad of 8-bound, these are kind of like early missile trading units for the world leaders. They can be used in other ways as well. They have a really cool 6-inch aura of reroll 1s to wound, which is also very powerful on the high strength of the exalted 8-bound, as well as the characters. So they can be used for other things, but they're also just like nice 2-damage missile trading units. So he's going to use them to clear this first squad of Nurglings I've got here, as well as take out the Stalker. Just get the ball rolling in terms of trading. And while he will be trading down with this maneuver, because he's losing 6 Possessed and Invocatus in exchange for a dog and 3 Nurglings, he is move blocking me, keeping me on my DZ, and forcing me to respond to these threats that are that are going to end up in strange places, right? Because with his charge move, he'll be able to put model here, here, and here, be behind the wall, and now I have to kind of expose a little bit more, get closer to him in order to really respond to him. So here we can see the charge rolls. I think unfortunately one of these does end up being a fail, so he has to re-roll it or something of that nature. He'll basically end this turn with 0 CP because he won't be able to cash either of his in. Like I was saying, the World Leader's CP economy is very important because they have incredible stratagems. Just to name a few, they've got the Sticky Objectives one. They have 1 CP plus 1 to wound and melee against monster vehicle character. That is an excellent stratagem that really propels their high strength into the stratosphere because, you know, moving from wounding on 4s or 3s to 3s or 2s really increases your efficiency quite a bit. It makes those plays a lot more reliable. Some other stratagems, they have 2 CP minus 1 damage in the fight phase. Not their best stratagem, but certainly very clutch. Trying to think of other ones. Oh, there's an excellent one where after you kill an enemy unit in the fight phase, you get to make another blood dice roll and add that to your active favorite of corn abilities. That is an excellent rule or excellent stratagem. That is absolute money. As we can see here, Tanner had completely abandoned his backfield. That's because the Jackal's sticky that objective. This ends up being a pretty big mistake. We can talk more about why later, but essentially because my blue scribes is in deep strike, he'll be able to come back here and take this objective very quickly, even though it's sticky, right? Like Tanner moves more guys back here, so I can't ingress onto it next turn, but I do ingress into the backfield and then move onto it in a future turn, so or in my following movement phase. So these Jackals being up here aren't really doing anything. They might be able to do an action next turn or something like that, but like it's better to just have them in the backfield screening and preventing my blue scribes from landing way out of the way here. So we can see he accomplished his goal. He killed those Nurglings here in a very close run affair, and then again here, because of the Nurglings -1 to hit aura, his ability to kill that dog was actually very sketchy, and he just got over the line with some great rolls from the Sergeant with the Lacerators. And so yeah, I'm a dog down and a squad of Nurglings down, and I've got to catch up in this trading war. So I draw my cards on turn 1. There's not much I can really do here to deny Tanner 10 points on the primary. This is one of my one of the best tips I give to people who are looking for advice on like how to apply pressure and or respond to pressure. We can see Tanner's exerted a lot of pressure here, right? While he doesn't have a ton of stuff on the objectives, he's got a Rhino, so he'll have this objective unless I put something on it, and he will have this objective unless I put a dog on it, which is impossible. I'm way too far away. So he's going, this is a priority target, by the way, so hold 1, hold 2, and then tons of primary points at the end of the game. If you for every objective you hold 5, 10, or 15 for 1, 2, or 3 respectively. So you only get 10 points every turn for holding objectives. So for me to deny Tanner's 10, I would need to stand on both this objective as well as this objective. Not really what I'm looking to do here. Let's pause and talk about why. This, at the end of the day, is going to be a material war, right? He's got 4 or 5 trading pieces, and I've got my now 11 knights, and I'm going to have to not lose knights at such a rate that I can't respond to his bricks. Because if I lose, 2 or 3 knights in the early game, my ability to actually chew through those big bricks of possessed, and as well as the berserker units, is going to be greatly diminished, and he'll be able to take the objectives and keep me off, which is definitely not what I want to do. How I'm looking to approach this game is clear units slowly chip down his resources, and then maybe on turn 3 or 4, once he's really just down to 1 or 2 big bricks, I can then just blow them up one at a time and then move on to the objectives in the late game for a narrow win. I'm definitely not looking to confront him early across the board. That's not going to be very good use of my time. Unfortunately, my secondaries didn't really do much for me here. Tempting target and secure no man's land. Tanner unsurprisingly tempted me with this objective because it was essentially impossible for me to get to it. Secure no man's land, I've got this dog up here, which will be a nice 2 points, and I end up sending in this carnivore as well here. This doesn't really fit with that philosophy of I can't deny him a 10, so don't move toward the objective. So you might be thinking, why are you actually doing this, Lucas? Well, the reason is this dog is going to end up charging these Jackals and stand like right here. So it'll be on the objective, which won't end up mattering all that much for the following turn because Tanner will still get a 10. But it does force Tanner to contend now, just like he said, here's a unit on an objective, here's a unit on an objective, you have to clear both of them to deny me a 10. I'm doing the same thing. Here's a guy on an objective, here's a guy on an objective, you have to deal with both of them to deny a 10. And Tanner's goal here is really to prevent me from getting early primary points. So I'm happy to concede early 10s to Tanner. He might not be as happy to concede early 10s to me, and that's what I'm really trying to force here. It also has the added benefit of once I charge onto here, I'll be getting 3 more points on secure no man's land because it gives you 2 points for 1 midfield and 5 points for 2, so it gets me an extra 3 points there. So I figured that was worth it. Trading a carnivore for getting the tempo of the game in my favor, as well as 3 more points on a secondary, I figured that was worth it. What we're doing here is just lining ourselves up so that we're not going to get karate chopped by these 8 exalted next turn. World leaders have the ability to, not always because it relies on their blood dice, which are an unreliable mechanic, but they can get +2 to move and advance and charge more or less on demand. And are with enough regularity that I have to plan around him always being able to have it. Wow, that is the most spastic thing I've ever seen from Tanner. You love to see it. So these Exalted could catapult into my backfield, and I'm just far enough away now that it really would be a challenging charge for him to get all the way back there. You know, they have tools like, oh, another stratagem I forget neglected to mention, 1 CP auto advance 6, but then, you know, he's still contending with that Nurgling -1 to hit aura. He's going into multiple dogs, so he might not kill them, and then I'll get to hit him back, and then he'll also be right in front of me, so I'll just gattle him down with all my surviving brigands. So I'm moving up, I'm not moving up, I'm spreading out in a way that I will continue to hold the objectives while I remove these resources that Tanner's put in front of me. So we got the brigands opening fire here. If you've never been shot by brigands before, they will basically just slaughter anything you put in front of them that doesn't have a decent invuln save. So all the arm guns are going directly into these guys in front of me, and then I take the mortar hats as well for the express purpose of chipping down cheap resources like the ones Tanner has here, right? He's got all these bricks, he's got like the squads of the characters with the squads of berserkers. Those aren't really units that you're taking the mortar hats for. Over the course of 2 turns, though, the mortar hats will be able to kill the flesh hounds and severely hurt the jackals as well. So just being able to kill a couple of cheap screening units like that is really why you take the mortars and why they're so useful. As we'll see here, I'll get the flesh hounds down to 1.5 models at the end of this turn, which will be excellent. And then this carnivore will also kill like 7 or 8 jackals, something like that. So great work from the brigands here. The last guy ends up finishing off Invocatus, which you know, not too worried about that. And then these 2 brigands here, kind of an iffy affair with only 2 of them, but they do end up finishing off these Exalted here. The multi-guns hitting on 2s and winning on 2s just means the only real point of variability is like if I roll a couple too many 1s / Tanner spikes his 5-ups a little bit. The Gatling cannons also being AP2 is really nice. So just picking up the early resources, getting the trading war started in my favor. Like I was mentioning, this is my whole goal. Just ablate the resources, get rid of them, start work it down to where he only has like 3 or 4 units left of, like, you know, the big bricks, and then I can hopefully just burst them down. So yeah, brigands continuing to fire here. We got melta-guns coming in. Looks like that last guy's wounded, and we'll probably polish him off with a mortar or something like that. So yeah, just in general matchup theory here, it can be a scary matchup for the Chaos Knights. I think it's one in which both parties really want to go first, because if Chaos Knights go first and the World Leaders scout toward the middle of the table, then there's very real potential that Carnivores can charge the big bricks, and between tank shock and just the actual punches, the Carnivore probably won't kill a whole unit of Exalted, but trading a Carnivore for like 4 or 5 Exalted 8-bound is exactly what the Chaos Knights player wants here. He wants the trading to go in his favor, and he wants to force the World Leaders player to deal with his units while they're in inopportune places so that the shooting can follow up the next turn and polish them off. And the World Leaders are just looking to slowly grind out the game, lock down the primary for long enough that they can edge out a win. I don't think this is a distinctly advantageous matchup for either player unless Angron is brought. I think Angron is a real problem for Chaos Knights because while they can kill him pretty quickly, he has a very real chance of coming back repeatedly, and every time he does, he basically kills a dog, and it takes an entire turn of firepower. He's also very fast and has the ability to, you know, get in, kill a dog, tag the next dog. Now that dog needs to fall back, so you've shot down 2 dogs, and then the whole army has to shoot at Angron. For such a cheap price, I feel like that's a very difficult thing for CK to have to contend with. The Demon Prince by Tanner is a very interesting choice. This was something he was just trying out, more or less. It's a very tough model. It's T10, 2-up armor, 4-up invuln, half damage, with the potential to get 6 of Feel No Pain from the Blood Dice army roll. So very tough, and hits decently hard as well. I get a 6 attacks at 10-3 with +1 attack and strength on the charge. And it also, very importantly, gives off a 6-inch aura of 4-up invuln with for infantry. So in a codex full of, you know, either of a 5-up invuln or no invuln, being able to bump that to a 4-up is really, really powerful, and helps a lot of the infantry stay alive. So I've just ended my turn 1. I got 5 points on Secure No Man's Land and 0 points on Tempting Target. So at the end of turn 1, the score is not including pain. It's 10-5 in Tanner's favor. So early advantage for Tanner, but totally expected. Going into turn 2, he gets a 10 on the primary, the lower right objective and the upper right objective. 10 for Tanner, and his 2 objectives are deploy teleport homers and investigate signals. So some actions for the world leaders, not exactly what they want to do, because a lot of their units right now are, especially their cheap units that want to be doing actions, the Fleshhounds failed their Battle Shock test. And the cultists did as well, and they're locked in combat. So they're not going to be able to do any actions at all. So the only things that are going to be doing actions are the world leaders' important units or the Rhino. Which is not exactly what Tanner wants, because all of those units want to be charging or staging and not really going to the corners of the map or middle of the map for actions. So we roll the blood dice, and Tanner once again gets +2 move and advance and charge. So he's going to be able to very easily make the charge onto that carnivore. And with the charge bonuses that world leaders receive, they will be able to easily kill that carnivore. Honestly, just in terms of the rules that these armies are getting, I really like the change to world leaders that they only get their bonuses on the charge. It never made sense to me, like, a lot of the armies that were like +1, AP and attack when you charge, heroic, or receive a charge. That never made sense to me. Like, these are supposed to be the berserker factions, right? Like Bloody Rose, world leaders, Goths. Like, Goths at least had a bonus for when they charged. The bonuses should just be when you charge, you get X. Not when you receive a charge as well. It doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm glad they made that change for world leaders. So world leaders, let's see, it's the detachment rule, the Berserker Warband rule is +1 strength and attack on the charge. So with those bonuses, they will easily be able to kill that carnivore. Karn in particular is a badass with flat 3 damage and real ones to hit and wound for himself and his unit. Really gets a lot of mileage out of the +1 to wound stratagem. So he'll be able to clobber that carnivore, no problem at all. And yeah, this carnivore is actually, in the middle of the table anyway, is providing some serious headaches for Tanner, right? Because now he has to commit some kind of unit to go punch that guy. If he puts Berserkers in the middle of the table, I'll be able to shoot them with Brigands. If he doesn't put Berserkers in the middle of the table, then, either the Exalted 8-bound, or the Demon Prince are going to have to answer that carnivore, and then they have the potential of getting shot, which is not at all what he wants. So what's going to end up happening is that Demon Prince is going to flap on over and charge that carnivore, try to put him down. And then while the Rhino launches into those Nurglings that I have at the bottom of the table, tags them, and tries to just kind of move block me for another turn. So the move blocking strategy in CK is really good. Obviously, they have the walk through wall stratagem for 1 command point, which works on 2 dogs. Excellent stratagem. But, it does CP tax me. I can only do it on 2 of the war dogs. And, if he charges that dog as well, then it won't be able to shoot when it falls back. So lots of negatives for me, and it does sacrifice the Rhino, but it keeps me in place for another turn. So definitely a good response by Tanner, using what he deems to be the minimum number of resources to achieve, or like the least number of resources he can to achieve the outcomes that he needs, which is to get me off these 2 midfields and then keep me bottled up at that bottom left corner, that choke point where all my Brigands are lined up right now. He'll just end up move blocking that with a Rhino, so I can't really get through. And I also can't just run at him either, right? Because these 8-bound are going to punch me in the face if I do that. Those guys hit really hard. They're one of the few melee units in the game that still has masses of high strength attacks with good AP. I think they're like strength 14 base at AP 3 damage 2. Some of them are twin linked. And with some of the buffs that world leaders can do with their blood dice, they can get a lot of extra hits or lethal hits, that kind of thing. Just a lot of extra mojo to power through enemy units. Knowing that Rhino is going to die, Tanner doesn't want the Berserker squad with the Master of Executions to die. So he gets them out behind that wall, staged up where those 8-bound were previously, just in preparation to go charge another dog in a future turn. Demon Prince, there he is after his advance, charging the carnivore in the middle. And we've got a very fast Rhino with +2 move and advance and charge. They can be incredibly fast, which is going to go down there and charge those Nurglings in the bottom. I think he's close enough that I'll also charge the Brigand. Charging one target and not the other now in 10th edition is not difficult. dangerous because you have to base your only charge target, and then you won't be able to swing in and tag the other unit because you'll be base to base. You can't consolidate. So he will have to charge both that Nurglings and the Brigand. Luckily, in this case, it's like a 3-inch charge, so nice and easy. And those Fleshhounds back there, they are battle shocked. They won't hold that objective. Luckily, it's sticky. I do decide to ingress my Blue Scribes, who is that primed white model in the upper right-hand corner right now. Those Blue Scribes are OC2, so the goal here is going to be to run onto that objective, mortar away those last 2 dogs, and then unsticky it at the end of that turn. So not a lot of shooting from the world leaders, obviously, and the Berserkers and their buddy Karn end up charging that Carnivore, and they will karate chop the hell out of him, which will be excellent for Tanner. And this Demon Prince charges the Carnivore. This starts one of the most hilarious strings of a model rivalry we've ever seen of Demon Prince versus Carnivore, where this Demon Prince will continue to attempt to end this Carnivore's life over the course of the next couple fight phases. So we'll see one of the duel of the century here evolving in the midboard as the Demon Prince continues to try to kill the Carnivore. So Karn didn't even need the Berserkers, just chops that guy's head off. Excellent job from him. And the Berserkers stand on the front of the objective. Good move from Tanner, which prevents me from standing my Brigand on the objective. If I want to get onto that, I will have to charge those Berserkers, which is good move from Tanner. Definitely something you want to exploit if you're playing melee armies, is prevent your any opponent's shooting units from getting onto the objective with their movement. Force them to charge you force your opponent to charge you if they want to get out of the objectives. Demon Prince, big old whiff, doesn't end up killing the Carnivore, and the Carnivore whiffs back into him. The Demon Prince makes all his invulns, or I failed the wound, something like that. So unfortunate in the midboard here. I do end up getting a 10, which is what Tanner really wanted to prevent. He wanted to keep me to a 5, and he does keep me locked up at the bottom of the table, but this Carnivore in the middle is really going to end up being a headache for him because, being above half strength means I don't need a battle shock test, so I'll get the primary, fall back, and deny his primary next turn. Tanner's thinking was he'll leave this objective because he doesn't want me to walk through models here, get some shots with my Brigands here, and pick up some Exalted for free. So he walked off this objective. This one is obviously looking a little sketchy with the Blue Scribes ingressing, but his goal was to knock me off this one with the Demon Prince, knock me off this one with the Berserkers. He only accomplished one of those 2. So unfortunately, I will be getting a 10, and then if this dog just falls back and I blast Tanner off this objective, he'll actually be getting a 0, which is really, really bad for him. I think, unfortunately, what happened was he undercommitted to this dog a little bit. Whether or not the Demon Prince actually kills that dog is pretty iffy. I mean, it's a limited number of attacks, so it's prone to spiking. He's just hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. So 1 or 2 dice under average, and all of a sudden my Carnivore lives. It was substantially under average, so my Carnivore didn't even need a battle shock test. But at the end of the day, I think Tanner undercommitted a little bit, and this is one of the big issues that world leaders have, is especially if they're bringing Angron, they only have a certain number of units, right? So if any of those units whiff, or they fail their charge or something like that, it can be really, really bad for them because they need those charges to connect, and those units that are in combat to actually finish off the units they're in combat with. Otherwise, they can't do things like fall back and shoot, or they can't do things like fall back and charge very much. So what I'm trying to get at is any whiffs they have are really big swings that end up being, can cause catastrophic spiraling for the world leaders, where they have to commit another unit now than in the next turn after a 10-point swing to try to finish off that remnant unit that survived. So another bum of this turn was that in addition to the 10 on primary that I got, was that Tanner didn't get deployed teleport home or investigate signals at all. So he keeps Helmer in the hopes that he can do it next turn, and discards signals for a CP, which is good, getting that CP train rolling. So at this point, let's see, he's got 20 points total, 10 on primary, 10 on secondary. I'm picking up a 10, so I'm at 15. And then what I draw this turn is defend stronghold and no prisoners. So this is perfect for me. Aiming to pick up a couple crap units around the table here. Just keep ablating the number of units that Tanner has available. and that plays right into the hands of no prisoners. And then defend stronghold. I'll be able to hold down my midfield, just keep getting that 5 on primary, and yeah, from there hopefully we can get her done. So I'm moving up cautiously here, just trying to kill the couple units that Tanner's thrown in front of me. Really would like to get rid of those Berserkers in Karn. They have a Blood Surge ability, which is troublesome for Chaos Knights. What really that means is that what that means really is that I need to shoot one Brigand into them. They can choose to Blood Surge into the second Brigand, and then that guy can shoot into combat at -1, which should be enough to finish them off. I've also moved up a Carnivore right here. I end up realizing that, let me clear my notes here. This Carnivore is going to go charge as well. What I end up realizing is that I should have just walked through walls, because that's Carnivore started this turn here. So it just would have been easier for him to go 14 here, because I'll end up walking through walls with this Brigand anyway. So this Brigand walked through walls. This Carnivore ends up going up here, getting a nice and easy charge on those Berserkers, presuming they don't like Blood Surge 6 inches or something crazy. Tanner responds by ingressing his Exalted. He realizes he's quite behind on tempo. Like, if I accomplish all the things I need to this turn, he's going to have like 3 units on the board, and that's going to be really bad. So he brings his Exalted in back here, with the goal of just starting to crush this left flank here for me. It's already a little bit sketchy with the Demon Prince and the Master of Executions in this area, so he just decides to double down and make sure he can hold this objective going forward. My Carnivore ends up falling back. Just wanted to, I debated staying in combat, you know, without +1 strength and attack, the Demon Prince is even less likely to kill the Carno, but I really didn't want to take any risks because it would have been big point swing and free up the Demon Prince. I just wanted the Demon Prince to continue to have to deal with this Carnivore in future turns. So he backs up onto the objective, denies the primary, and just chills out right there. We're opening fire with some random mortars and stuff, picking up the Fleshhounds up here, and continuing to work on the remnant Jackals that are here. I have a big decision point of where to shoot this Brigand at. Because of how the angles work, I do have a narrow bead on a couple of Exalted up here. If I can kill one of them, then I force them to take a morale check at -1, and if they fail, then they can't use Stretch, which would be huge. Like if they fail to clutch short charge or something like that, not being able to reroll that. We're going into turn 3, so they'd be -1 to hit me because of the Chaos Knights detachment rule. So, lots of reasons to try to nickel and dime that unit, in addition to just starting to kill the models. So I end up shooting all of my guns up there. The belt is whiffed, but the Gatling gun pops off and kills the guy, which is excellent. But that does mean I have 1 less Brigand shooting at these Berserkers, which isn't great, because the Berserkers then take the fire of the 1 Brigand, only lose like 2 or 2.5 models, something like that. So it's going to be difficult for this Carnivore to actually clean up. And that's all I'm really doing this turn, is I just chip one of those Exalted down. I kill this unit with Karn down to basically nothing, and I clean up the last of the Fleshhounds with the Blue Scribes in the backfield. So now I'm feeling in a really dominant position, right? I'm stringing Tanner out. He's having to send guys up here. If he wants to deny my primary and defend stronghold, he's going to have to make a beeline for my backfield. This guy's starting to creep up on his home object, or on his natural expansion, which is not good for him. So I'm stringing him out in different directions with the ability to respond with Brigand firepower to any of those pushes, which is exactly what I want. So I've killed the Fleshhounds. What are my 3 unit kills? Do I end up killing that Jackal? Oh, yes. The first, I line up multiple Brigands because I don't want to whiff killing that Rhino. The Rhino gets annihilated by the first Brigand, of course. Something like 19 damage or something silly. So, Rhino's annihilated, Fleshhounds are annihilated, and I end up finishing off the Berserkers as well. Karn ends up surviving, unfortunately. So a bit of a whiff there from myself. Seeing that none of Tanner's models were on the objective, I don't end up charging or consolidating onto it either, because there's no real point. I want to play around overwhelming force. And if he's not going to score the primary, then I'm not going to bother either. Bother standing on the objective, that is. So go in there with the Carnivore, tank shock, try to power through the last of the unit. I think about consolidating there, but I decide against it, realize there's no real point, it's only downside. So I get Karn down to, I think, 2 wounds, something like that. And now he'll get to swing on the Brigand, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, I did accomplish everything I needed to. I killed the Berserkers, the Fleshhounds, and the Rhino, so I got 5 on prisoners, and I've set up for a nice, safe 3 on Defense Stronghold as well. And I've got my primary relatively on lock, which is really the scariest part of this game against World Eaters, is early primary. So here we are going into Tanner's turn 3. Unfortunately, he is getting that 0 on primary, and his draw is Overwhelming Force. So he has kept Homer and drawn Overwhelming Force. I do have 1 unit on objective, right? I've got this Carnivore here, so if he can kill that Carnivore, he'll get 3 on Overwhelming Force. It doesn't really look like there's much else I have on objectives. So won't be able to get that many points from that secondary, but a 3 would be decent. Deploy Teleport Homer, right, is going to be challenging because of this Cultist. He failed his morale check, unfortunately. Chaos Knight Army Rule being the excellent ability that it is. So he won't be able to deploy Homer. So it's going to have to be one of these 4, beat stick units that are left that deploy Homer, which is really not great. So I think Tanner ends up discarding Homer at the end of this turn, not getting any points on it. So at this point, Tanner's definitely behind, right? I have units in all corners of the battlefield, and as well as I still have my Huntsman and Deep Strike, or Huntsman in reserve, so he'll be able to come on off a board edge shortly. And yeah, so I've got units in all corners of the board. I'm stringing him out. He's going to be able to hit me pretty hard here because I've basically stood right in front of him. What he does here is, instead of activating the +2 move, advance, and charge, he gets sustained and lethal hits from his blood dice roll, which means that all these connections with the War Dogs, he should be able to just wipe them out. So we've got the unit of Exalted here, which are going to go crash on this Brigand, and the Nurglings hope to just pick them up to stymie the push onto this lower right-hand objective. We got these Exalted with a little bit less movement because they didn't have the movement blood abilities. They will only really be able to charge these 2 Brigands, which is fine. They will karate chop them, no problem. They ended up passing their morale check. Karn auto pass. The thinking there was, with access to Terror Shades, at this point I really haven't used much CP because I've just been shooting Brigands in front of me. I haven't needed to use any strats on anything. I've got 4 or 5 CP, so I would have absolutely Terror Shaded that 2 wound Karn and just picked him up, which would have been pretty bad for Tanner. So he auto passes Karn and just rolls the dice on the Exalted, luckily passes on them. So with the Exalted heading down here, that should be this Brigand gone. Karn fights on death, so he's a decent chance of killing this Brigand. The Master of Execution squad charges into this Carnivore, should be able to take him out with decent reliability. The Demon Prince faces down his eternal rival, this Carnivore, hopes to kill him, and then these 8 bound get a move on toward this this Brigand here. So if all goes to plan, he will kill 5 dogs here and put me down to 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like, which won't be super great for me. I do still have the 1 Huntsman in reserve and the blue scraps in the backfield, which is excellent. But it's sketchy, right? Because I'm down to a low number of dogs, so I've really got to make sure that all the connections I make on the next turn are, that they work out. Basically, I need to pick my targets very closely and just execute those couple of targets and not overcommit. One thing I see a lot of people do when they're faced with a pressure wave is try to deal with all of the issues at once. And that's a great road to losing very quickly. Because if you try to deal with all 3 threats and your opponent has correctly identified that you can't, they'll just try to overwhelm you. You'll try to deal with all of them, fail to deal with all of them, and then they'll run you over. If they put 3 threats in front of you and then you kind of block the progress of 2 of them while eradicating 1 of them, then you're in a much better position, right? So be realistic about what you can deal with in your turn. If you don't do that, you're doing yourself a huge disservice, basically. So in my following, God, that camera bumping is annoying. I'm sorry, guys. In my turn, I'm going to have to be very judicious with which of these threats I'm going to actually be able to deal with and plan appropriately. So here go the Berserkers. The World Leaders are charging. It's what they do best. All of these Exalted squads should just obliterate the dogs they're in combat with, no problem. The Berserkers are a little bit sketchier. Tanner did have to reroll a charge here. I think on the Exalted 8-pound up here, because they rolled like a 4 when they needed a 5, which was a bummer, which means he won't have +1 to wound, which really changes the math on the Berserker squads, makes them all the more likely to wipe out a dog in one go. But no big deal. I mean, it happens now and again. I have that he got a 3 on Overwhelming Force here. I don't really know what that was from. Is it Nurglings? Nope. He doesn't end up killing this Carnivore because Mr. Demon Prince whiffs yet again. Oh, I remember. I'll point it out when it comes up. It's a very goofy thing. So we're just trying to figure out the best way. Tanner's very cognizant of, even though he has his offensive buffs up right now, he doesn't want to let the Nurgling -1 to hit punish him very much, because the Exalted hit on 3s now with their Chain Fists. It's a little sketchy. It is pretty sketchy to have them hitting on 4s instead of 3s. And there's big potential there to just whiff and then not kill the things you need to kill. So ends up working out for him, and the Nurglings as well as the dog just completely go away, which is great news. Moving into the fight phase here, we'll see that these 2 units die, being, the Nurglings as well as the dog. The Exalted up here killed this Brigand, no problem. This Carnivore in the middle miraculously survives against the Demon Prince. And then this Carnivore also miraculously survives against the Master of Executions and Berserker squad, despite the Master getting all of his buffs from the relic that he carries. I just rolled some good Feel No Pains with the 1 CP 6 of Feel No Pain strat and end up surviving, which won't matter all that much because the Demon Prince will give those Berserkers a 4-up invuln, so they're very likely to not get hit super hard by that Carnivore back. And then good news for Tanner, this Brigand also dies to Karn in the ongoing combat stage. So Carnivores are alive, which is a bit of a bummer for Tanner, but he did kill the 3 Brigands, so he is limiting my firepower pretty substantially. I did end up ingressing, I have this pile of CP that I've been mentioning. I do end up ingressing a Huntsman back here to be able to move on to this objective. He's just going to provide additional fire support into this unit next turn because they are going to be my chosen target, that one thing that needs to get eradicated. So he has an extra, 3 Melta shots that'll hopefully do some work there, kill a guy or 2, provide a tank shock backup in case I need, just to finish off someone who's wounded really badly. So at this point, my Carnivore does actually manage to make some contact onto the Demon Prince. I think he puts like 3 or 4 wounds on him. So that guy's getting pretty low at that point. He's at about half health at this point. And then this Carnivore, I think, kills 1 or 2 Berserkers. We're just rolling a bunch of dice here, as World Leaders are wont to do. I think this is the Exalted swinging into my Brigand at the bottom of the table. Wipes him out, doesn't explode. Didn't have a lot of explosions this game. And that Juggerlord is actually wounded. That's what that die represents from overcharging his plasma pistol. The hazardous rules for shooting weapons are kind of goofy. If you haven't seen them, basically the way it works is if your whole unit, including the character, have hazardous checks, you lump roll them all together, and then you assign wounds to bodyguard models first, regardless of whether or not the leader's weapon's overcharged or overheated rather. But if you only have 1 model in the unit with a hazardous weapon, you roll that and assign the wounds to the character first. So it's a little bit confusing how that works, but I don't know. So Tanner, unfortunately, continues to have to use his CP in awkward places like on auto passes and reroll charges, so he can't actually get the things he wants to, like that 1 CP make a blood roll or a blood dice roll after killing an enemy unit, which he really wanted to use here to grab an extra Feel No Pain pip, which would have been really good on these 8-bound, moving them from a 6 up to a 5 up. But unfortunately, just not having the CP to do that is a big bummer. So I end up getting a 10. Blue Scribes on the backfield, Doggies on the home field, putting in work, and I get a 3 on Defense Stronghold. So at this point, the score of the game is Tanner's at a 20, and I am at 25-3. 3, and 3. So I'm at 33. So it's 20 to 33 in my favor already. And I just draw overwhelming force and assassination. So unfortunately here, not a lot of World Leaders units on objectives, especially, you know, this unit that I really need to deal with down here. This is where my army is strongest. So I need to just collapse on this unit, burst them down, and try to lock down this flank. This Demon Prince doesn't have wings, so he can't fly over me, despite what's modeled. He doesn't actually have wings. So my hero Carnivore survives, falls back to here, blocks the Demon Prince from getting past him with his, you know, absolute Chad carnivoreness. And I put one guy back here just so that Tanner has to beeline back here with these Exalted or let me have the primary. And then I move through walls with this Carnivore and some Brigand somewhere, I think this guy. And they just start making progress up the board, get in position to collapse on these Exalted. This Carnivore is making a beeline for Karn. Karn fights on death, but not in the charge phase, I believe. So if I tank shock him, he will die, and then I'll be able to pile into the Master of Execution squad and hopefully do some work. I nominate this squad of Exalted 8-bound for my 6's Explode stratagem, which ends up getting me some value. I just open up on them with the 3 Brigands and Huntsmen and just hope to, you know, cripple the unit, if not wipe it out. So we're slowly chipping them down. The strength 12 and strength 6 breakpoints that all the CK guns have are really efficient into, or for the most part, very efficient into the T6 of the Exalted. Certainly a lot worse when they're T5, when they were a T5 anyway, and you were winning them on 3s. But good thing that got changed because that needed to be. So yeah, we're just chipping them down here. The great news is CK have 3 different guns on all of their Brigands, right? So you can kind of shoot them in an order that facilitates killing the models very efficiently. What I mean by this is if there's unwounded, if you know the squad is fresh, you start with the Meltas, you maybe kill a guy, you move on to the auto gun, maybe you whiff a little bit and do 2 wounds. This guy's down to 1, and the mortar went somewhere else. On the next Brigand, you can then do the opposite order, right? Start with the minigun, kill the 1 wound model, and then if you know another guy's down to 2 or 1, you can try to finish that guy off with the mortar, and then shoot the melt gun last. So you can kind of order it in a way that makes the shooting very efficient, and that's part of the reason why Brigands are so powerful, especially into things like Necron Warriors, right, where you have the very 2 important Cryptothrall models. All you need to do is know when the opponents are taking saves on those Cryptothralls, shoot the Melt-A-Gun into them, you know, annihilate that Cryptothrall, and then just chew through the Warriors with the with the chain cannons, because CK do have the volume of shots to just kill the Warriors at the end of the day. So end up finishing off that whole unit with the 3 Brigands and Huntsman, maybe spiked a little bit, but with all the belted guns, it's pretty likely that, you know, he fails enough invulns that the squad is either neutered enough that they're not going to do much, or just completely wiped out. Carnivore tank shocks Karn, and then whiffs, unfortunately, into that squad of Berserkers, that 4-up invuln standing strong. Tanner uses +1 to wound in response, and unfortunately kills both of those Carnivores, which is a really big deal. I was expecting my charging Carnivore to do more work and for his Master of Executions to whiff a little bit, but, you know, flat 3 damage is a hell of a thing, and that guy gets even more damage on the charge. So definitely a very nasty relic. If you haven't seen this World Leader Master of Executions with the Berserker Glaive, you should check him out. He is brutal. Does a lot of work for the Blood God. So I bursted down Tanner's very important unit. Also get rid of his reroll blood dice, which is going to be nice in this late game as he kind of scrambles for resources. Not being able to reroll the blood dice to get what he needs is going to be really important. Blue Scribbles, still just big chilling on his backfield. Huntsman chilling on Tanner's side of the map. So unfortunately, I have his whole backfield, even if he's starting to make progress on my backfield. Oh my god, the camera. So yeah, and then once again, the Demon Prince tries to take out my Carnivore, my absolute Chad of a lad who just refuses to die. The Demon Prince did fail his morale check here, which means because it's turn 3 or later, he will be -1 to hit, and I'll be +1 to wound him. Tanner did pick up a 5 in the primary here. Flipping that objective with the Master of Execution squad was great because that'll get him 5 in the primary. He draws Overwhelming Force and no prisoners as well, which means that he will be able to, or sorry, he had Overwhelming Force from before. That's what it was. He kept it, and then, yeah, he scored a 3 on it when he killed my Carnivore that charged onto this objective. Is that how Overwhelming Force works? I don't know. He got 3 somewhere. Either he's going to get it from killing this brigand down here this turn, or he got it last turn when I charged onto here. He got 3 from it at some point. And then no prisoners. He is going to pick up 3 units here. He gets the brigand. He gets this brigand here. And the guy that was in combat, because he shot him to death. So does end up getting 3 dogs, which gets him 5 points and no prisoners. But at this point, he is unfortunately just kind of out of material, and I'm already winning on the points. Takes my home field, which is nice. So if he draws capture enemy outpost, that'll be a nice points bump in the late game. And here we have the Demon Prince swinging on the Carnivore, and there we saw he the Nemesis has defeated him. The Carnivore survives at 1 wound after using the 5 at Feel No Pain strat. The Feel No Pain strat upgrades against Battle Shock targets. So he got a 5 up against that Demon Prince's axe, survived at 1 wound after healing from Ravenous Terror Shades, and then bashed the Demon Prince in the face. So just so dumb that Carnivore ended up winning that fight after charging onto the middle objective on bottom of 1. Now it's top of 4 and he's still alive. What a Chad. So yeah, 5 points for Tanner and no prisoners, 5 on the primary and 3 on overwhelming force. I'll pick up a 10 here, and unfortunately from here it's just a downward spiral for Tanner, where we basically end up calling the game after this round because I'm already up like 15, 20 points, and from here it's only going to get worse because he's basically going to run out of stuff. I end up drawing Bring It Down and Investigate Signals, ditching Bring It Down for a CP, and grabbing a 4 on Signals with my blue scribes, as well as these Nurglings up here. So get 4 points on Signals and nothing on Bring It Down. In the last round, Tanner grabs a 10 on primary. He'll get a 5 on the primary, 2 on his drawn card, Secure No Man's Land, and he kills a dog for Bring It Down, this 1-wound Carnivore that just kills on the objective. For myself, I'll get a 10 on the primary. I draw Area Denial and Storm Hostile Objective. And then, let's see, I would be able to Area Deny and wouldn't be able to Storm Hostile. So I'll pick up another 5 points there. Eventually we'll get you guys a scorecard. That's something that's definitely in the works right now. So sorry that's not a thing yet, but we're working on it. And then for priority targets at the end of the game, we get 5 points for every objective we control to a cap of 15. So I'll pick up another, let's see, I got a 10, and I'll pick up another 10 for the objectives on the right side of the board. Or I guess I should get a 15. Oh, I'm already at a 50. So I'm at 50 on the primary with all of that said and done, and Tanner will get another 5 for holding my backfield with those Exalted. So final score of the game ends up being 59-87. In terms of a team's differential, that's what, a 28-point win. So a 15-5. Very interesting game. I definitely feel like some things went in my favor this game. The Demon Prince continuing to whiff was huge. I also don't think that guy's very good. While the defensive aura he provides is excellent, he just doesn't do a lot other than that, right? Like his melee isn't fantastic, and while he's super tanky, having a tanky guy for 200 points just kind of isn't worth it when that could be another melee trading piece or multiple screening units. So this was something that Tanner and I talked about afterward. I think his list was really lacking number of units. If he had maybe another possessed unit and another unit of flesh hounds, or if he downgraded that lord, dropped the Demon Prince, now he's got like 250 points to play with. He can grab another unit of Possessed, 2 units of Flesh Hounds. Now he's got 2 more screening/trading units, as well as, another squad of Possessed to actually go and kill stuff. I think that would do him a lot of good. He also is, a lot of World Leaders lists have 2 Rhinos. I think that is like the gold standard. Rhinos give you a lot of flexibility to try to hold on to primary, as well as just try to activation lock your opponent. And the Berserker squads that are inside the Rhinos are excellent, especially with the speed that they can get coming out of the Rhino, being able to basically disembark 11 inches with the +2 to move, and then advance and charge from there means you can go very, very fast. They don't have the initial turn 1 movement with all the scouting that the Possessed do, but they can be a very good unit for just having a nice small footprint behind one of these L's, tucking it somewhere like right here, where Tanner's drink is right now, and then just being able to launch out onto this objective guaranteed, maybe even make some long charges toward the opponent's home objective, and then also threaten this one. You're threatening 2.5 objectives with that unit, which is excellent. So maybe another Rhino would have been good for Tanner here. I also feel like throwing away those Possessed in the early game probably wasn't that worth it. He did move block me a little bit, but my plan was just to kind of try to stay back from him anyway in the early game. I just bleed him resources. He just ended up throwing resources into my face, which, you know, ended up working out perfectly for me. So I don't think that those trades were very worth it for Tanner in the early game, because they netted me Inficatus and 6 possessed in exchange for 3 Nurglings and a dog. Like, that's super worth it for me. So definitely some interesting takeaways. MVP for myself is definitely the Blue Scribes. He didn't really kill much. He ended up zapping a dog and 1 jackal, but he held down that Tanner's home objective, unstickied it, and got 5 points for me. So instead of just being 5 points on the primary for myself, that's actually 10 point swings, right? Because 5 less for him, 5 more for me. And if I ever drew Outpost, he would have been great. He ran into the back corner to investigate signals. Just tons of great stuff from that guy. I'm super happy with how he did. For Tanner, I think the MVP was definitely that Master of Execution squad, just charging and killing everything they could get their hands on. Karn was also a badass. I think the characters that join the Berserkers are absolutely excellent. The Berserkers are just a good data sheet. They're a little expensive. They're for just a basic Marine body, but they hit pretty hard, they go pretty fast, and they are OC2 and provide good primary swings, so definitely a good unit there. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this game. Sorry about the shaky camera setup and lack of scorecard. That is something we're going to be addressing in the future. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this game. It was very fun to talk it through. Definitely an interesting matchup that we'll get to see more of in the future. And yeah, happy gaming, everyone. See y'all later.